Hello, my friends, and welcome to a brand new episode of Discourse in Magic. My name is Jonah Babbins, and this is a wonderful conversation with Ben Seidman, David Parr, Chaim Goldenberg, and Adrian Lacroix, all about virtual magic. What do you think about virtual magic? What does your virtual magic show look like? Do you have a virtual magic show? Well, this is a conversation with four people who've actually pivoted into the space. And it's honest. We talk about the good parts, we talk about the bad parts, and we also share some tips for communication, what you can do to help communicate with your audiences, and what you can do to make your virtual magic show better. It was a wonderful conversation. It was plucked from the UnConventional.fun virtual magic convention that we had last weekend. That was a blast, but I'm not talking about that anymore. I'm talking about this, a wonderful conversation that's going to help you with your virtual magic show. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Ben Seidman, David Parr, Chaim Goldenberg, Adrian Lacroix, and myself chatting about virtual magic. Enjoy. Hello, hello, hello. I know that you can hear me. Welcome. We hope that you took a wonderful, much needed break from the Zoom room and you got to explore and jam and have a really good time.
By the way, just so everyone knows, Jonah is not as tall as he's making it look. He stands on his toes behind this table. I don't know why he does it.
It's what I do. Okay, so right now this is very, very exciting because we are hosting a panel. And if some of you know, I run the Discourse in Magic podcast, and I decided, just because I was so freaking excited about this panel, that I decided that this may actually come out as an episode in the future. So you guys will be like on one of the very few live episodes ever recorded ever. I want to introduce this wonderful, wonderful panel. So first person that I'm going to introduce, this is someone who I got a chance to speak with quite a bit in detail about theory in magic. I got a chance to see some of his lectures and talks, and he's really, really phenomenal. And today we're talking about virtual magic, and he's done a really good pivot into the virtual magic space. So our first attendee of the panel is the one and only David Parr. Our next panelist here is somebody who I am a I'm a large fan of everybody, but this is somebody who I'm a big fan of. And when I was a kid, I had in my head, he had a trailer, like a trick that came out in Magic. And it was by far the coolest trick that I've ever seen in my entire life. And I thought it was amazing. And then 5 or 6 years later, we connected again, and he's cooler than ever, touring, corporate magician, wonderful, amazing, incredible, the one and only Ben Seidman. There he is. The next person that I wanted to introduce, very exciting, is a Toronto local. He lives here in Toronto, and we've done so much fun, amazing shows together and projects together. And if you do mentalism, if you've seen mentalism, you have probably seen one of the things that he's created, and that is especially true when we're talking about the virtual space. So I'm talking about the one and only Chaim Goldenberg. And of course, you know, many of you knew him before, but in the last 6 months, you've had so many opportunities to be introduced to this magic maven, this creator, and who's brought so much amazing virtual stuff to the world. And I'm so excited to chat right here with the one and only Adrian Lacroix. Very quickly, let's do a quick 2-minute introduction of who you were before and what you're doing now. That's it. 2-minute introduction, who you were before, what you're doing now. I'm going to start with David Parr. Tell us about yourself.
Hi. Most magicians know me from my appearance on Fool Us. I fooled Penn and Teller. That was a few seasons ago. I've done shows in Chicago, theater shows for many years. One of my shows ran for 10 years in a theater in Chicago. Most recently, I've been doing a virtual show since April, a virtual show called The Sorcerer's Lair.
Beautiful. Very exciting, and excited to dive into more what that show is all about. I'm going to pass it on now to Chaim. Chaim, tell us a little bit about what you did before and what you're up to now.
Hello, everybody. So, yes, I'm a mentalist from Toronto. I'm doing mentalism for a long time. Recently, just a month before the corona, I came up with the BM project because I'm a mentalist and I knew that the corona will come up. No, we started as a corona started. I create stuff for other mentalists. I work with other mentalists, and yes, this is what I'm doing.
Amazing.
Now unfortunately I do Zoom shows.
Well, we're going to talk about that in a second because I'm really interested. I think there's been a lot of people who have found some successes in this, and people that have found successes and don't like it. And then there's some people that haven't found any of that. So we're going to talk about that today. I want to pass it on right now to Ben Seidman.
Hello, I'm Ben Seidman. I mostly tour doing live shows, corporate events, colleges, some theaters, cruise ships, whatever. And now I'm doing the same thing virtually. I've been doing a show called Camera Tricks that streams live on a variety of platforms, and I've been doing that pretty consistently since April. And I'm pretty busy. I do these shows a lot, and so I miss live performing, obviously, but this has been a lot of fun for me.
Cool. I'm excited to talk about that pivot for everybody here. And of course, I want to pass it on for an intro from the one and only Adrian Lacroix.
Hey, well, I live in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and I've been performing mostly mentalism in private events and corporate events. And all this started when I was trying to change my act to be able to perform and get the same feeling. We know it's not the same feeling, but try to get the same reaction from the audience, right? And that's how I started creating these tricks that you may saw the last few months.
Beautiful. Well, I'm excited to talk about some of the innovation. And one of the things that we're already seeing come through in this is that some people kind of like this interesting, fun, artistic exploration. Some people are a little bit frustrated by it and are just kind of counting the days or trying to figure out when this whole thing can go back. So I want to play with both sides of the scale a little bit. I'd love to go and find out from everybody, what is one thing about virtual magic that you actually do like? What's one thing that you like? And then one thing that you're frustrated by, or one thing that you don't like, or a challenge that you have. So I'm going to keep the same order just for clarity. Let's start with David.
One thing I don't like, should we do don't like first?
Sure. Yeah, that's
Okay.
better.
You're so negative, David.
Yeah, I'm going to go right there. I figured it's always, the tradition is bad news first, good news second.
It is better. That is smart.
Right. Well, it's been difficult to get used to the lack of audio feedback from an audience. My background is in theater, so to me the definition of a show is the same, a bunch of people in the same room at the same time, and you can hear them and hear their response to the magic. You know when the effects are landing, you know when the jokes are landing, things like that. And so it's like performing in the vacuum of interstellar space, where no one can hear you scream. It's a little weird to get used to just tuning into visual feedback from people. So that's a little frustrating at first, definitely. One of the advantages I've discovered of this medium is this frame right here. Because of this sort of proscenium we have here, anything outside of this frame is ready to be ditched or stolen or switched. So in virtual space, the world is our holdout. And I'm performing magic in my show that I could not perform in person because I'm taking advantage of this frame. And that's been a fun, creative exercise.
It's so amazing what's happened to all of us when, we used to think of ourselves, some of us, as different as people who performed on television, or different, doing different style magic, or very different worlds. And now all of a sudden, everyone's dropped in the world. And now we all too get to take advantage of the square frame that's not moving. And you guys have no idea what's over here. These are all the final loads are over here.
Yeah.
Nobody can do that. So I love that. Okay. I want to pass it on to Ben. Ben, hit us with one thing that you don't like and one thing that you like about virtual magic.
I think I'm going blind. My eyesight is getting progressively worse as I stare at a screen for longer and longer and longer every day. So that's I would say that's a disadvantage. Look, it depends on how you look at it, but I want to maintain my eyesight. But I feel like these guys are going to get thicker as we go, or I'm just going to have to start popping extra contact lenses on the other ones inside, which is medically unsound. I would say that the best part for me is that this is the first time in, I think, 7 years about that I've gotten to sleep in my own bed for more than 5 days at a time.
Wow.
So I'm normally traveling and I'm gone most of the year. I think last year I did 212 dates in different cities. Getting to see my wife more than occasionally is really exciting for me, not her. And my wife, we're newlyweds. She still loves me. it's been really nice to actually be home. And then there's one other thing that I'll add, which is another advantage and disadvantage. A disadvantage was I had to write a whole new show for this, and then the advantage was I got to write a whole new show for this. So it was exciting getting to just go through my notebooks and think like, oh my God, this is the perfect idea that would work in this medium. I scribbled it down for a TV special, and I never ended up using it on whatever TV special it was. It'll be perfect in this environment. So the excitement of creating new magic is something that jazzes me, and that's my favorite part is inventing new stuff and tweaking and making things better. So that was, just like a live show, it was like doing that, except accelerated. I built my live show over the course of 15 years, and I just worked 70 hours a day constantly for the first month and a half to get to where I am now with the Camera Trick Show.
I love what you're saying. And part of the thing, one of the commonalities that I keep seeing, that we found here is just the fun of creativity. Like, we all get built into the shows that we've built. And I mean, we shake things up, but maybe it's one piece at a time, one little bit at a time. But to have things shaken up so quickly kind of gives us an opportunity to be very, very creative, very fast. So I love some of that. And yes, every eye doctor now is getting calls saying that nobody can see anything anymore.
Oh, thank God, Jonah. I was so worried you were going to say, and yes, I'm loving getting to spend more time with your wife too. And I did not know how to process that.
Not at all. I want to pass this over to Chaim. Chaim, tell us about one thing that you like right now and one thing that you don't like.
Oh, my notes are very similar to the others. I like the fact that I'm working from home. And at the same time, I don't like the fact that I'm working from home. We need some break from time to time. But honestly, the big disadvantage is the communication with the audience. As we know, on stage, we have totally different communication and connection with the audience. And here, it's totally different. And this is what I don't like about this. And yes, I definitely like the creative process that it bring us, and then keep thinking of how to make the Zoom show closest as possible to the real show. It will never happen, unfortunately, but we're getting closer and closer. And everything is still new. It's 6 months, so everything is new.
Sure.
And yeah.
The way I see it, one of the things that I think about in this is that every single person who is doing anything right now in the virtual space is an innovator, is a creator. Even if you're just doing your old in-person act but changing it to virtual, you're an innovator, you're a creator. It hasn't existed before. So every new thing that you come up with, try, test, that exists because you are on the forefront of magic. So I love what you're saying, and it's kind of like, go ahead.
I want to add something about this. We as magicians and mentalists, we're doing much, much better than other artists like musicians, stand-up comedians, and we did great job in the last 6 months with this. So I'm very proud of this as well.
What an amazing point to remember, that we are so fortunate that even though we're all talking about some of the challenges of magic, like magic is a communicative thing. It exists with people, and it's very different than someone singing or dancing in a room. That live really gets separated because you don't get live music. It gets put through a mic and speakers, and sometimes it's not as special. So really good point. I want to pass it on to Adrian. Adrian, hit us with a rose and a thorn of the world of virtual magic. What's something good? What's something that's challenging?
I think the challenging part is the same as David said, right? The lack of reaction from the audience. They react, but we are not able to see them maybe or hear them. But also that is a good challenge, because we need to find ways to express ourselves through the screen. Another thing that I think is good is that we are now in a situation that is similar for me than the false psychic. The people who claim to be psychics in the late 70s, they need to go to the scientist and prove their powers, right, in test conditions. Now we are almost in the same situation. We must perform the magic, but make it happen through the screen in completely test conditions, because we are not able to grab the things or to manipulate them. So if we are able to perform magic this way, I think we can have miracles happening at home of the spectators. And then they don't think that that's even possible. For example, I'm able to perform a rising card, and I think before this happens, no one would thought that a rising card could happen miles away with a spectator deck, right? And his hands. So I think this will bring us good challenge to make the magic more impossible and in test conditions.
One thing I love about what you're saying, thank you. One thing that I love about what you're saying is that now there's some obvious challenges in front of people to do virtual magic. And one of the challenges is exactly this thing that's coming up, which is how do we make sure that we actually can do something that happens in other people's homes? And anytime we do that, we've immediately gone above and beyond. Anything that any other entertainer could possibly do, we are doing because it's actually happening in their hand, with their cards, with their, whatever it is in their mind, something they wrote. So I agree with you. There's this beautiful, challenge now for us magicians, and we know exactly what it is that we have to do to make the magic resonate more. We just need to build up that interaction and connection. And one of the commonalities coming from everybody talking about some of the cons is the challenge of connection. It's not the same as a live audience. You can't mingle through the audience, but also each and every one of us, if we've been doing virtual shows, virtual conversations, we have established some sort of tools or tips that we use to help with communication. So I'll give you one that I use. You guys probably noticed me doing it so far. I say, if you can see me and hear me, wave your hands like this. Give me thumbs up like this if you can see me and hear me. That does two things. It makes sure that I don't do a half a presentation where nobody is missing me. But also, it means that people aren't just sitting in front of their screens like this. Instead, they actually are moving their body. They're being a part of it, and they're part of the action. And it reminds them that it's not a TV show. This is an actual live thing. So my next question is Ben.
Can I just jump in here quickly? If you're on Zoom, and many other platforms have this too, you can switch to gallery view. And although you might not be able to hear the audience clapping like you normally would, or hear them freaking out or laughing, you can still see people. So I kind of early on started swapping between gallery view and speaker view constantly, depending on what the moment was. And you can still get that feedback. You can still see, it's just different. You're just not going to hear a crowd laughing all in unison. You might hear one or two people who you've unmuted who are laughing. And I have people unmute and mute during the show so that I can hear people laughing and clapping. Or if I just want that big feedback loop, I just go back to click gallery view. It's a keyboard shortcut, Shift Command W switches back and forth between the two. And then suddenly you can see everyone and you can read the room and see, make sure that everyone's engaged. Just thought that was important.
Yeah, it is. And one thing to touch on that as well is so many people here have said, they don't get audio feedback, but most of the times when we're doing shows, unless there are crying babies, we often like leaving we've experimented with both, sometimes with kids shows. It's different. I know some people are kids performers and whatever, but we've experimented with leaving the cameras, all the mics on. And sometimes you can hear and see everybody laugh, and you can see and hear everybody clap. And it's very, very interesting. So the question to continue on what you were just saying is this: what tools and tricks and tips of communication have you been able to build for yourself or discover? There are things that you use in your virtual shows, in your virtual communication, anything like that. So I'm going to start with David. What kind of communication tips do you have?
Before I started doing this, I took a few days to think about it. And one of the challenges I saw ahead of me was, how do I connect with people across a screen? It's not a thing that I'm used to doing. And so I thought, where is there a model for how to do this properly? And I thought back to those old Doug Henning magic specials that I watched when I was a kid. And there were two things. I noticed that the way I remember watching those specials, it seemed like when he spoke to the camera, it felt like he was speaking to me. And part of that was eye contact. So I first of all have to get used to talking to a camera as if it's a person, as if it's a friend of mine. And that's a skill that takes practice. And So I started to practice it. And at first, what I did was to remind myself that the camera is the person that I'm talking to. I took one of these little tape flags for marking a page in a book. I made it into an arrow, and I stuck it onto my phone or my iPad to which I was using as a camera, pointed directly at the camera. So I knew there was constantly an arrow there to remind me that that's where I need to look if I'm going to connect with people. I think the other engine that makes this function is sincerity. If I genuinely invite people into my world and I share with them a bit of my history, who I am, what my interests and obsessions are, they'll connect with me. They'll connect with me even across a screen. And that's how I felt about watching those Doug Henning specials, was that when I was older and met him and had a conversation with him, that was the same guy I saw on the TV screen. He was that same person. So I think sincerity is part of the engine that makes this function.
One thing that came up, like I thought as a meme, but the first person to say it to me was Chris Pillsworth, who said, think about all these people who have affected people from their homes, like the Mr. Rogers, or these are examples of people who never had any audience feedback, and people talk about them for years and years to come. There's so many amazing hosts on TV that have never had audience feedback that we feel like we need.
That we connected with through this medium.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's possible. We know it's possible.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to pass it on to Ben. Ben, tell us your communication tips and tricks if you got them.
Well, I'm drawing exclusively from my experience doing magic both on TV and in person. So I did like Penn and Teller's Fool Us, like a number of people. I did Magic Outlaws on Travel Channel, a couple specials, this new Netflix series. I was a consultant for Chris Angel. So I've been behind the scenes and in front of the camera a bit, and kind of that helped me a lot. But if you're just like making magic videos at home and putting them on social media, a thing I don't recommend. If you're doing that, then you're used to the camera. And if you're in front of a live audience, then you're used to that. You really have to treat it differently, but also in the same way. Like I personally, I don't have the tricks that everyone's talking about for virtual, where the spectator has props and you have props and you're guiding them through things. There's one moment in my show, for a brief moment, where everyone at home is doing something. Everything else is just them watching me or interacting with me verbally. I've never been drawn to that type of material personally. It bores me. I hate the process. I haven't found a way to make it fun and interesting. So my show is interactive, but it's not interactive in the sense that they're holding props. It's interactive in it that we're joking back and forth. And I'm talking to them and looking at them, and it feels like a real conversation because it's not this stale script that I'm delivering. It's different based on what the person looks like and who they are and where they're from and what we're talking about. And that's what makes it feel live and present. Like there's nothing worse than watching a virtual show where it's just like, well, this is a passive experience. I could have gone on Netflix and watched something that was better produced with more famous people and a real budget. So it has to really feel present. And I think the only way to do that, for me, the only way to do that is just engaging with people on a human level and making them laugh. And in my case, I'm trying to make them laugh based on what's happening in the moment, not anything else.
I love it. And just to touch on and reiterate what you said, is so much of the important aspect is communication. And when somebody is hiring us or attending our virtual show, you hit the nail right on the head. Their biggest fear is, how is this better than YouTube or Netflix? Like, why is me watching this better? And the answer must be that there's an actual person on the other side that can actually see you and actually interact with you. And whether that means you're doing tricks where they follow along, or that means whatever it means, it just means that it's not sit, do another thing, do 9 other things, 18. There's someone looking at you, listening to you, and caring to have that communication. So I love that reminder. I want to pass it on to Chaim. Chaim, hit us with a tip for communication that you have discovered.
There's so many tips, but David, I like the idea of to put the camera, this still piece, and this is what I'm doing. I put a small arrow on the camera. The best tip ever, really. And I like that you mentioned this. So yes, I treat Zoom shows, and this is also, remember, the audience that watching you, they are watching kind of a live TV show. Okay, most of them are not participants. Most of them just watching. So you need to remember that what you are doing now, it's kind of a live TV show. And when you talk to someone, you need to talk with him, communicate with him, and everybody will watch and will engage to this talk. So pretend that it's a TV show. This is what you have to have in your mind, in my opinion. To do so, you need good lights, good background, and pay attention on those stuff. And I think it's important. At the beginning, when we started to do the Zoom shows, we have a thought that maybe it's better to have an environment of like very normal home, because we doing this from home. But today, I think it's better to have more kind of studio or upgraded environment when you do those kind of shows. This is the other tip that I can give is try to be as much as visual as you can. As you know, it's a bit difficult to be funny, and I know it's the most important. You have to be funny. We have to communicate with the people. But the visual stuff that you do, the tricks that you choose, I think it's very important that it will be visual. Sometimes we have a problem with sound and other stuff, and we need to grab the attention of the people, so they need to see stuff all the time, and not to have a boring area around us and just talk like I'm doing right now.
Will you make me co-host so I can illustrate a point, please?
Yes, done.
Thank you.
Oop.
Okay, great. So, by the way, I've never done a show where I haven't been made a host or a co-host. It's a thing that this is the first time I've ever even done a talk. I always want control, or at least control shared with someone else, so that I can look out over people, which is what I'm doing now. And when I address people, I can just like, hey, Terry Morgan, will you unmute yourself? Oh, hi, Terry. Thank you for joining us all the way from Ireland. Great to see you. You look different in person. Nice to meet you. Thank you, Terry. And then also, let's see, who else do we have here? Oh, look, it's Curtis Cam. Look, it's my buddy Curtis. Hello, Curtis. Curtis is the only coin magician I respect who uses a background and a shirt material that are interchangeable. Hi, nice to see you, buddy. So I'm joking around with people. I'm constantly bringing up different people. And when I do, they feel seen, because I'm not just saying, hey, where you're from. I'm actually like commenting on something about them or their Zoom window. And so when you're watching the show, if you're just watching a show on Zoom, the Zoom fatigue kicks in real quickly. But if everyone thinks at any moment that they could be chosen, which is in the case with my show, anyone could be chosen. Like Clint Smith. Clint, how's it going, man? How are you doing? So I just brought up Clint. If everyone feels like that could happen to them, which it potentially could, it really changes the game, because instead of just watching this show, people are like, well, I could be next. I kind of have to be on my game. Yeah. So they have to be engaged in that way. So I think that's really good. Brian, you got something weird on your head. I would get that looked at, man. That's a really confusing and concerning thing. What's funny? Brian didn't even know he had a pet. So weird that would happen. So like for me, moments like that are the show.
I love that note. What Ben and I call it, even though we don't actually do it like that, is we call it roasting the audience, which we don't actually, because Ben and I are not good at roasting. So we just say, like you did, we say things that are more like,
I'm good at roasting.
Okay. More like complimentative, we'd be like, wow, Bruce, you got an amazing shirt. Is that really Mickey Mouse? Did you and we do exact same thing and spotlight in that way. So I really, really love that note. I want to pass it on to Adrian. Adrian, what are your tips for communication in this virtual space?
I think what Ben said before about the gallery view is really important. I've been using the gallery view since this start. Yeah. So I'm watching everyone, not only the panel, because I think it's a good way to have feedback, right? I can see Sean making his cards. I can see Alex almost falling asleep. I can see many people doing different things. But the thing is, we can convey, as they say before, that we are present in the moment, right? We are present and we can see them. Another thing that I think is interesting is to do different things on a show, like something that is participative, but something that they only must watch and observe, and some things that happens there. So try to change the piece on the show. Not everything is the same. So I don't want them to be used to the format of the show. I want them to be surprised when I do something different, when I do something new.
I love that. And again, it's one of those explorations again in creativity. And we find that as soon as we try to put some of our magic into virtual, we're doing some of the same things. And that's when we have to say, how can I make this look different? How can I make it, expand it, make it different than the other trick, different than things other people are doing, and just make it so that when the experience is over, they feel like they had an experience, not that they watched a card trick but that they had a full entire experience. But my last question is this. What I have found is there are so many people who are basically somewhere on the fence with virtual. It's been however long it is, and no matter if you have done a few shows or none, or thinking about it or want to try it, or whatever it is, there's so many people that are still living on the fence and dipping their toes in the water. So what can you tell somebody who is getting into virtual right now? It is, it's basically October 1st. We're going into Halloween in December, Halloween and Christmas. What kind of advice or tips or wisdom can you tell someone stepping into the virtual space right now? I'm going to pass it to David.
Two things, I think. One is we have to get past the obstacle of comparing. And that's that I've been sitting in on many online magic club meetings, and every once in a while someone says, well, but it's never going to be as good as in person. And that thinking is a recipe for defeat, and before it's even started, and inaction. And so I think we have to just set aside that, yes, in-person performance is a different animal. This is not the same. Each medium has its own quirks and limitations and advantages and disadvantages, and all of those things are ours to discover. And the only way to discover them is to dive into the pool and experiment. Mm-hmm. So I think ultimately the second point I would make is that it comes down to one question, and that is, if I'm presented with two possibilities, and one is do something and the other is do nothing, why would we choose do nothing? Right? Do something. Mm-hmm. So that would be my advice.
I love that. And I think I want to echo what you said, because this is the most important point for me. Is all the people on the panel here are people that have whatever feelings they have about virtual magic. You've heard the goods and the bads, but every single person here is like, yes, I feel this way. Yes, I feel this way, but I'm an entertainer, but I'm doing it, but I am figuring it out, but I am creating, but I am, and that's part of it. So I'm with you. I think it's a playground that people should come play in, instead of saying, virtual magic isn't as good.
It's not the same, but it's not the same.
It's not the same.
It isn't.
Right. Watching magic on Netflix is completely different than watching a live show. And I love both of those two things. Okay. I want to pass it on to Ben. Ben, what is your tip for someone getting started in this journey?
Yeah, well, when I first started, I was just using the webcam on my computer and the built-in mic, and it slowly built and evolved to what it is now. So I built a laptop stand out of wood to prop it up, to give myself more room. So I built that myself. That's held in. I built the stand also out of wood, which holds the camera. That's a mirrorless camera. This is my music, which is wired into a digital audio interface. I'm using a Scarlett 4i4. This is one of my monitors. Because the new Zoom update, you can spotlight multiple people, as you now know. For the people who are tuning in on mobile, which I strongly suggest that they do not, they're going to see this. So I want to be able to see what those people see, even though I advise them against this. I use a secondary computer right here to play a pre-show video, because I don't want to use extra RAM. And then the lighting, by the way, there's a great article from Larry Fong that's posted on his website about camera and video. Everyone should read that if you're interested in this. Larry did a bunch of the work for you. So just look for Larry Fong's website. So, in the background, I have lighting. I also have soft lights here bounced off of the wall. And this light right here is being masked with just paper towel. That was another Larry Fong idea, just to make it so that it was soft which is how it's supposed to in film and TV. I don't like cutting cameras. A lot of people do and have multiple cameras. For me, it's not my style, and I don't want a situation where people could say, "Oh, he did something. He did something when he cut the camera." My show is called Camera Tricks, and the whole idea is that I'm going to use one camera trick, and they have to figure out which one it is. And then at the end, the twist ending is that there are no camera tricks. So to me, it was very important to keep the single shot. However, I do a lot of close-up magic. So I rigged this. Which brings my camera down. So that way we can keep one continuous shot. And then if I want to bring it back up, I can also bring it back up. And what that is I got a fluid video tripod head, which is really, really smooth. I mounted it on top of the wooden contraption that I built to spec. There's a piece of PVC that runs this way and then at an angle and then down. And what this allows me to do is this is what holds the camera in place, right? This is what keeps it tight. So if you unscrew that, it makes the camera loose. So by pulling this, if you watch in view, you can see by lifting this up, it brings down my camera. So that brings it down.
We should all be glad that Ben is not building a doomsday device.
Yes.
David, who said I'm not? And then the other answer is to bring it back up. So by the way, it's the weight of the camera that takes it down. There's a stopper that stops it at the perfect position so it doesn't go too far. This right here is just a plastic ring that I made that's running through a pulley system underneath that runs on the back of the camera. And so by pulling that down, that brings it back up. So when I want to unlock here, I grab this, I lift this up, which unlocks it, and then I pull up, angling my hand like this, which brings me back up into frame. And this.
So basically, you keep it as simple as possible, just so that you can bare bones get started.
Yeah,
just quick start guide.
So Jonah, I'm showing that because when I started, it was a laptop, and that was it. And I would turn my screen down to move the camera. And I did virtual shows like that. Clients paid me to do shows like that, and I mean, I upgraded it slowly because it turned into a successful business. But before that, I was fine doing it as rough as could possibly be because I was relying on the content of the show. And so the reason I showed you all of this to say, yes, I have this set up now, but when I started, it was just a computer. So wherever you are, there's no reason why you shouldn't just start. Even if you're scared about it, do shows for your friends and family. I wouldn't have started selling this show before test running it on a whole bunch of people anyway. So just try it and see if this is a thing for you. And I mean, probably it is. Adapt or die, right? This is the motto of 2020.
I think the key thing is about just getting started and going and putting it out there. And I can echo the same thing. When we started, we had 3 tables stacked on top of each other to get the right look. We had boxes and then books and then paper under a computer to make sure we put slices of paper or pieces, that's what people call them, pieces of paper in one at a time to tilt the angle until it was perfect and tilt the camera down, and it was hanging up high. And then as stuff went on more and more, we figured out that, hey, if you get this cable, the camera that's been sitting in the closet can do this, and upgrade to this because they hear the peas popping. So instead you put this and they don't hear the peas popping and everything. So slowly upgrading. Thank you for that, Ben. I'm going to pass it on to Chaim.
Slices of paper.
Yeah, slices of paper.
Slices of paper.
It's like pizza. Chaim, what can you tell somebody who is starting to get into this space?
I'm still amazed by Ben's new illusion that he builds there. It looks amazing. It's amazing. So first of all, we have to remember, especially the professional ones, we have no choice. We have to do Zoom shows. I personally don't like it so much, but this is what I'm doing. I'm a mentalist and I need to continue. So it's not a question if doing or not, you have to do it because it's going to keep for a long time. As much as I do it more and more, I start to love it a little bit more. So this is also a thing. At the beginning, it was a nightmare, but now I can say that I enjoy doing those kind of shows. I have a small tip for people that still didn't start and they ask how to do it, what to do. The first show is, so open your Instagram Live or Facebook Live and invite people and just practice on them. I remember at the beginning, I did almost 2 hours every day practicing new stuff. And I wanted to learn the reaction of the people. And this is the best way. You don't need to go somewhere. You just open live Instagram and people will join in more and more and more, and you will be able to practice. And this is the best tip for someone who didn't start yet.
I think that's key advice, because one thing that's cool about this space is that it is actually really easy to get in front of human beings, really easy. If anybody here's a hack that I've been doing for some of the people that I've been working with is, here's the hack. All you do is post on Facebook and you say, I'm working on a brand new magic trick that happens through the screen. Anyone interested? Leave a thumbs up emoji, leave an eggplant emoji if you want to see it. And just watch all the eggplant, or maybe a more appropriate emoji, but you'll watch everybody say, of course, I would love to see a trick when it happens on my side of the screen. And now you can go get practice immediately. Or what Chaim said, which is on Instagram, you can click a button and somebody joins you one-on-one on the live call. So that's such an easy way. People come on and you say, hey, you want to do a trick with me? Yes. Boom. You do the trick with them. Perfect. Done. Thank you so much. I hope this was good. Amazing. I'll see you guys later. And you can go like this. You can say, if you like that show, at the end of the month, I'm going to be putting on a virtual magic show. Maybe you're interested. Maybe you're not. I don't know. It's for you. And there you go. Maybe you'll sell a ticket too. So I don't know. That's me. I'm always hustling. Okay. I want to pass it on to Adrian. Adrian, tell us what you think somebody who's stepping into this space needs to know.
I think we have an advantage. That is that the audience has lower expectations of what we can do in this situation. They don't think that it's possible for us to be able to do the things we do. So when they see the show, they are more surprised sometimes, because for them, they think that they are going to have fun or they are going to see something interesting, but they don't expect the strong surprise that we can achieve doing this. And the impossibility of the things, as I said before, because we remove the magician physically from the place where the magic is happening. So I think all those things are in our advantage, and we can play with that. So you don't have to be afraid. You need to go and start playing with the things and try different things, and you will find quickly what it fits to you and what works and what doesn't.
I love it. One thing that I've been really taking note of, or excitement in this phase, is that it has been a real, not necessarily a turning point, but it's been a real evening ground to say everybody wasn't doing virtual shows 6 months ago. Every single person had to do something creative right now. Nobody got to say, I'll just do the virtual show that I used to do. And I'm pre-saying that because I see some people in the comments that are being like, I don't know, because I spent 10 years working on my act, and now I don't know, do I want to spend some time? What do you think every single person, any person that's doing anything through the computer screen is doing right now? So I agree. There's so much wicked innovation. We have some questions that came in. One came in from Cody Clark, the wonderful Cody. I love you, Cody. You're awesome. He said, my question after Ben's comment is, how do we maintain sincere communication and not make things passive when a client insists that the show is pre-recorded?
So here's the thing. The clients will sometimes say, we want a pre-recorded thing for our conference because we're worried that there's going to be technology issues. So first of all, I give them my specs so they know I'm hardwired into the internet. I give them all of the information about my backup power source and all that stuff so that they know that short of some sort of catastrophe here in LA, which why would one of those happen in 2020? Short of that, they will get a clear signal throughout the show, right? So when they want a pre-recorded thing, I say, look, if you want to do this, get 20 members of your company into a show. I will do a show just for them, and then we'll export that, and you can use it for a limited amount of time. But I prefer not to do that. And when they say can we post the show afterwards? I say, yeah, leave it up for 24 hours for your employees in Singapore who couldn't make it. And then after that, you have to yank it. And that's part of the contract. And if they say, no, we want to use it for longer, I just quote them a stupid amount of money, which they'll say no to. Because for me, I want this to feel live and not feel stale. And tuning into something and just watching it passively is not the same thing. So I just ask my clients not to do that. And I sell them on the idea of the virtual show. I appreciate all of the kind comments on the setup that I showed you. That's very nice. As proud as I am of coming up with that, I'm way prouder of the material and the show structure and the experience that I can deliver in the Camera Trick show, which is primarily I'm doing them for corporates, but I'm also doing some ticketed shows. So if anyone wants to see one, if you go to benseidman.com/secrets, there's a link to click on there for tickets if you want to see what I'm doing. But yeah, it comes down to what is going to work to your advantage and against you. And in my eyes, watching a pre-recorded show is always going to be death.
By the way, the two things I want to share there. The first is it kind of echoes the situation in live, where in live, we get thrown into all sorts of situations, and it's our job as a performer to do our best to dictate what it needs to be and make the decision if it's something we want to participate in. The second thing is, Ben, I didn't realize the real hidden pun of your show, which is camera tricks. Your camera tricks with the camera. Camera tricks. I don't know. Okay, maybe I'm digging too deep.
That's the Easter egg, Jonah.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. I found it. Okay. There's another question. This one is pretty simple and I really like it. And maybe we can go quick, or only, I guess if you're on the panel, raise your hand if you got a good answer for it. But what is the best way that you have found to pick a card virtually? Yes, Ben.
Have them think of a card. It's the most straightforward, easiest, and also creates the strongest effect possible. So that's number one. Number two is have them say stop on something, which you can do if you need to force a card. But having, just like in a live situation, a thought of card is always going to win over a selected one.
Boom. I love it. David, did you have one, or was that going to be it more or less?
Yeah. I mean, there are a couple of points in my show where I do, tell me stop whenever you want. But before I do that, I say, bear in mind that there's about a half-second lag in the video feed, so I won't be able to stop exactly when you say, but in that vicinity. And now they tell me when to stop, and I break the deck at that point. And that works fine.
In my opinion, the best card trick over Zoom, it's Adrian one with the glass. The best. By far.
Do you want to explain a little bit about what it is and why it's so good? Maybe Adrian, for people who...
Maybe Adrian will.
Or just what it is, maybe. You don't have to explain why it's so good, but what it is for people who don't know.
Basically, they can name any card and the card appears.
Yeah.
Well, that's a miracle. That sounds good.
There is another way that is interesting, depending of your lighting conditions, where you can spread the deck in the mat, in the pad, and then you can put the finger up, and they can see the shadow of the finger going through the deck. So whatever they want, they can say stop when they see your shadow over the cards, and it's a fair choice too, if you want them to take. It depends in which type of routine you are going to perform, right? As Ben said, if you ask them to name a card, always is strong, but depending on the routine, you are not able to do that. So you need to find something that makes sense with your character too, with the type of magic you present.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I love that. Okay, and we're going to take two more questions. One came in here from Nathan Comarsh, and Nathan said, you've all worked hard to build a strong reputation with your clients through in-person shows. Were you anxious that online shows might dilute their image of you if they weren't as strong as your in-person shows that you spent so long creating? How did you move past that? Is that still a concern? So are you worried that they're going to be disappointed now after years of being thrilled? Yes, Ben.
I was worried at first, and then I got some road time and the show got really good. And then now I'm not worried. And also now my clients know that if they see my live show, they're seeing a totally different show, because I tell them, yeah, I wrote the show specifically for this medium. You're not seeing a guy just do his live show to a camera. This show was designed from the ground up for you, for this experience. So that both sells them on how good the show is and also conveys to them that they're getting a different experience if they haven't yet hired you live. But a lot of my clients are people who have hired me over the years. But
here's the thing: this medium has a huge advantage in that my proximity to the camera creates the illusion that I'm sitting directly across from you talking to you. So there's a kind of intimacy here that's difficult to create in a theater when the audience is 20 feet away in the front row. So here it's not as difficult to connect because there's this kind of intimacy that comes from a screen on which we're used to talking with people we care about, right? We're now used to like talking to people we care about on screens so much. So this is there's a kind of intimacy here that's a great advantage to us. I mean, in some senses that the deck is stacked in our favor here. So that was never a concern of mine that somehow, again, we get back into the realm of comparison. Is it going to be as good as in person? And I dismissed all of those thoughts. I just thought that's an obstacle I will have difficulty getting past.
It's different.
If I need to move forward, I have to just set all that aside.
Yeah. Chaim?
Yeah, this is exactly the thing. We don't need to compare between Zoom show and live show. It's totally different, two different things. And this is what I say to my clients when I sell a show. You're going to get a totally different experience from what you saw before or what you're going to see in the future. Because it's different, you need to create, on Zoom, you need to create the best show you can on Zoom. And focus on this and forget about the live show. This is totally different media. Put it in your mind and focus on this. And I saw many, many, many good Zoom shows. So it is possible.
I love that answer. Adrian, do you have an answer to that question?
Different doesn't mean better or worse. It's completely different. But also, you bring them to your world. Like right now, I'm in the sofa in my house, and people is in the same situation because they are in the lockdown too. They understand this. So we have something that has to be more with the empathy, that we're all in this together. And we are trying to create something for them, to entertain them, and they need to be entertained because they are just bored to get all day at home with the kids, with the problems, with all the things. And we have little time to relax and just to forget about the situation. And I think what we do has more relevance maybe now than in other moments.
I love what you said, but I just want to say one more thing about that question to kind of wrap this up, which is, and I wrote this little word to remind myself, which is the word grateful. And I have found that a client who hired us before and now is going into their year-end party, they don't know what they're going to do. Last year they had a venue and food and catering and this year they don't know anything. And they talk to you on the phone and you say, don't worry, I've done 97 of these. Here's how it works. Here's what my show looks like. No, it's not like a live show. It's an amazing, interactive, fun, virtual Zoom show. And now they get excited and they're grateful that you are solving a problem for them. I have not had even the inkling of a thought in any moment once, even remotely, from any client who said anything related to the thought of, wasn't as good as when I saw you in person, but it was still good because it wasn't my choice. The world is virtual. So that's what it looked like. And it was different than in person, just like it'd be different if they saw me on TV. Okay. I just want to take this opportunity to give every single person on the panel a ginormous round of applause. Everybody, woo! And also a sincere thank you, because we are all moving forward in uncharted territory. I know I've spent some time working with magicians, and it is gut-wrenching right now to enter this space. Everything is new. Everything is the first time. Everything is happening right now.
But that's the excitement of it.
Exactly.
By
So
the way, I want to add something. If you want to see, because Chaim has a lot of creations that are meant to be performed on over Zoom or over a video call. They can see in BM Magic, right? In BM Magic Project. Why don't you put the link on the chat?
Yeah, thank you. It's on the dealer show, I think, in the dealer room or somewhere. Thank you.
And I will put mine too. If someone is interested, they can see.
Well, there you have it. A wonderful episode of Discourse in Magic. Well, I thought so, but that's because I love virtual magic and I love these four amazing magicians. I hope you liked the episode. I hope you learned something. If you did, please share it and spread the word. Tell a friend. This stuff doesn't really share as easy as like YouTube videos or Facebook posts. You kind of have to go and share it or really go and tell someone. So that's why you don't see viral podcast episodes. It doesn't really happen like that. So if you could help, share it, tell one person, it would mean the world, and it might help them in their virtual magic show. Thanks for being here. See you next Thursday.